The sea hammered against the black basalt slopes of Dragonstone as dawn seeped, colorless, through a sky of bruised iron. Stannis Baratheon stood alone on the wind-raked parapet above the stone drum, gloved hands clenched on the cold merlons. Salt spray stung his eyes, but he did not blink. Through the roar of the surf he heard only the words that had haunted his restless night. A victory bought in fire, a crown tempered in the scream of his only child. He thought of Shireen's smile, so rare, so tentative, when she laid her doll upon his desk the evening past, asking if he might mend its torn calico dress. He had mended it, clumsy fingers groping for needle and thread. Of all his failings, stitching was one he would gladly have worn forever if it kept her safe. Yet the Red Priestess insisted the gods cared nothing for mortal tenderness. Melisandre had shown him the vision thrice. Green wildfire blooming across the Blackwater like demon flowers, galleys cracking and burning men leaping shrieking into the jade inferno. But when the girl's royal blood was given to flame first, the sea itself darkened and smothered the wildfire, and Stannis' banners flew above the Red Keep. The vision curled within him like a hot coal. Every sinew in his body yearned to refuse her, for the Lord of Dragonstone had never bowed to any will save his own stern measure of justice. Yet at the ragged edges of that justice stood the memory of brothers dead, one slain by treachery at a wedding, one slain by his own folly upon the Trident, while the bastard boy in Winterfell styled himself King of the North and the lion cub in King's Landing fattened on Robert's stolen crown. The realm needed order, law, peace wrought of iron, and only he would give it. If one life, even a life as dear as Shireen's, could end a war and spare tens of thousands, was he not bound by duty to pay that price? The stone stair spiraled down beneath his boots. In the gloom of the lower halls the air smelled of smoke and damp wool and salt. Outside the chamber of the painted table a pair of guards parted, spears rattling, and Stannis pushed through. Davos Seaworth, gaunt and gray, knelt with charts spread like pale skins across the table's scarred surface. Candles guttered in iron sconces. The walls were leaping with red shadows. "Your Grace," Davos said, rising. His eyes flicked to the door at the soft tread behind Stannis. Melisandre glided in, robes pooling like living embers. Stannis felt the chamber tighten. He spoke before either could. "Lord Seaworth, have the tide tables been confirmed?" "Aye, sire. If we sail on the new moon, we ride the flood from Dragonstone and reach the mouth of Blackwater Bay before dawn breaks over King's Landing." Davos's voice was steady, but his gaze shifted to the Red Woman with something like dread. Melisandre set a hand upon the painted table, long fingers caressing the carved forests of the Stormlands. "Dawn will break crimson," she said, "if the sacrifice is made as the Lord of Light commands. The green sorcery of the usurper's servants will gutter like candles in a tempest. The river shall open, and the Iron Throne shall bend its knee." Davos swallowed. "You speak of blood. Whose?" Stannis met his friend's haunted eyes. "My daughter's." Silence. The slow drip of candle wax was loud as rain. Davos's mouth worked soundlessly, then found breath. "No, Your Grace." The Onion Knight's voice cracked, rough as the stones beneath the keep. "There must be another way. If there were, I would take it." Stannis's jaw set. The fate of the realm is no small scale against one child's life. "A scale?" Davos stepped forward, palms open. "She is your flesh, Stannis. Your heir. The girl loves you as the dawn loves the sea. I have 4 sons buried in the stepstones and 3 who still draw breath. I would trade my own heart for theirs, but never theirs for mine. Ask it of me, not of her." Melisandre's laughter was soft, pitying. "A smuggler's son is a candle against the sun of King's blood. It is Shireen's song the Lord of Light hears across the darkness." Stannis turned away, pain flaring under his breastplate like wildfire of its own. "Leave me," he said. Davos lingered a heartbeat, then bowed, gathering charts that rattled and tore under trembling fingers. When the door closed, Melisandre's flame-colored eyes shone in the gloam. "You waver," she said, a whisper close behind him. "I am no stranger to sacrifice, but this..." His fists trembled. If the God you praise is just, why demand innocence? Because innocence is potent. Shadow cannot devour shadow. It devours light. In death, the princess shall become the sword you wield. This is her destiny, as yours is to remake the world. She stepped closer, heat radiating from her skin. Trust the fire. For a moment Stannis imagined striking her down, watching her blood spill. Yet would the flames only laugh and crown another champion? He had tried steel and lost at Storm's End and the Trident. He had tried honor and been scorned by half the realm. Only one road remained. Shireen Baratheon sat in her small solar, tracing her fingers over a brittle page of the Dance of Dragons. Grayscale had left her fingertips ridged and sensitive. The parchment felt like bone beneath her touch. Patches of sunlight glimmered through the arrow slit, painting the stone with amber. She hummed softly, a tune the fool Patchface had taught her long ago, though the fool himself was gone, drowned when a gale snatched him from the battlements weeks past. Footsteps halted at her door. Ser Axel Florent entered, eyes downcast. "Princess," he murmured, "your father summons you to the chapel." Shireen's heart fluttered. She loved the chapel's stillness, its colored windows alive with stories of Queen Rhaenys and wise Maegor before he turned cruel. Yet Ser Axel's voice felt wrong, as if he spoke through water. "Are Mother and Lady Melisandre there?" she asked. "They await you." He would not meet her gaze. She closed her book, smoothed her dress, and followed. The corridors twisted like roots cut through with candlelight. As they descended, the air heated, filled with the resinous scent of pitch and cedar. The chapel doors were open. Inside, 100 braziers glowed scarlet, and above the altar towered a hulk of driftwood shaped into the fiery heart of R'hllor. Celis knelt before it, cheeks wet, hands clasped so tightly the knuckles shone bone-white. Melisandre stood behind her, lips moving in inaudible prayer. Stannis waited to one side, armored, the shadow of his jaw a granite line. When Shireen saw his face, she almost ran to him, but the heat pressed her still. "My sweet Ling," her mother said, beckoning. Celis' eyes were bright with fevered light. "Come, kneel with me, and let us honor the Lord of Light." Shireen hesitated, but a child's instincts are to obey. She knelt. The floor was warm, almost uncomfortably so. Melisandre's voice rose. "Behold the dawn. The darkness gathers in King's Landing even now, but one pure flame can banish 1,000 shadows." She turned to Shireen, eyes glistening. "Will you light the way, princess?" Shireen looked from the red woman to her father. Stannis' lips parted. No words came. His eyes, so hard, so unyielding, shone wet. She had never seen her father weep. The sight terrified her more than the heat. "Yes," she whispered, though she did not understand. If he needed her, she would be brave. Melisandre smiled. Priests emerged with torches, and iron chains clinked in their hands. Terror finally clawed through Shireen's confusion. She tried to stand, but Celis caught her shoulders. "For the realm," her mother sobbed. "For us all." The braziers roared higher, heat like an oven. Shireen's scream echoed through the chapel as iron bit her wrists. She called for Davos, for Maester Pylus, for anyone, but they were locked outside behind soldiers in crimson cloaks. Flames soared, devouring the cedar idol, and the smell of burning pitch mingled with the sweet, sickening scent of charred flesh. Stannis forced himself not to look away as smoke blotted his child from sight. Her screams lanced his ears, each one a brand upon his soul. When silence fell, the Lord of Dragonstone tasted ash on his tongue, and knew it was the taste of damnation. Blackwater Bay lay swathed in fog, the color of lead, when Stannis' fleet glided toward the mouth of the river 2 fortnights later. Wind filled crimson sails bearing the fiery heart. Beneath them 1,000 oars beat time, their cadence muffled in the murk. Davos stood upon the prow of fury, eyes narrowed. No sea broke against their hulls. The water seemed to part before them, unnaturally calm. He remembered tales of sorcerers in Valyria who could still the tides, and he shuddered. On the wind came the faint sound of bells. King's Landing ahead lay ignorant or unafraid. Davos scanned the fog and breathed a silent prayer to the mother. His sons rowed other ships. Mathos commanded Black Betha, proud and upright. The boy would never shirk his duty, even if he now looked upon his father with quiet accusation. Davos had protested the princess's execution until Stannis threatened to strip him of rank and send him from Dragonstone in chains. The smuggler had bowed then, but part of him broke like a ship upon hidden rocks. The sound of horns rose from the unseen city. Shapes emerged, thin black hulks slipping seaward on the outgoing tide. Lannister patrol galleys, 30 at most. Too few. Davos frowned. Where were the rumored Dramans? The monstrous ships armed with alchemists' green hellfire? He squinted into gloom, then saw it. A faint green shimmer beneath the waterlines of the enemy galleys. Not wildfire in barrels. The entire river glowed. His stomach nodded. The alchemists had laced the Blackwater with their cursed substance. One spark could turn the bay into a cauldron. Loose arrows, he bellowed. Bowstrings thrummed. Shafts fell upon the patrol ships. One enemy sailor toppled overboard ablaze. But the water did not erupt. Instead, the green sheen dimmed, receding like dye drawn from cloth. Within moments, the glow vanished, leaving only dark water and drifting arrows. A moan rippled through the Lannister crews. Their galleys faltered. From the flagship Fury rang a single beat of the war drum, deep and commanding. Stannis raised his sword, and torches sprang alight along his bows. Red flames, normal, honest flame, burned bright yet held no fear of the wildfire below, for there was none. Somehow Melisandre had quenched it. The fleet surged forward. Grapnels flew. Stannis' spearmen vaulted the rails, black iron against gilded mail. Davos fought beside his king, cutlass flashing. Blood slicked the decks. The enemy broke quickly, unnerved by sorcery they could not fathom. Between galleys, white-knuckled sailors hacked chains so Stannis' line could advance upriver two abreast. On the riverbanks, the city watch scrambled. Arrow storms hissed from the walls, but the fog swallowed their aim. Davos glimpsed the chain across the river, but before the Lannisters could raise it, a fiery projectile streaked from behind Fury, one of Lady Melisandre's blessings. A cask of pitch bound with runes. It struck the winch tower in an explosion of scarlet fire. Stone cracked. The chain sagged and slid beneath Blackwater. By dawn's pale birth, Stannis' vanguard rammed the river gate. Rams boomed. With a crash, the gate burst inward. Men poured onto the wharf, banners streaming red gold. Trumpets inside the city wailed alarm. Church bells clamored. The fog lifted, unveiling a sky blushing red. A color not of sunrise but of smoke from burning dockside warehouses as Stannis' men fired tar pits and lamp warehouses to flush defenders. In the Red Keep, Cersei Lannister clutched Tommen to her breast as the walls trembled. The Queen's maids whispered of shadows on the river that moved like living fire and a host whose blades burned without heat. Maester Pycelle babbled prayers while Ser Balon Swan hurried to muster what remained of the Kingsguard. Joffrey, pale and sweating, demanded his mother bring him to the battlements to witness the traitor's failure. But every thunder of rams made the boy flinch. Within the sept atop Visenya's hill, the High Septon prostrated himself before the Father above. Yet through the stained glass window he saw the harbor afire and wondered if the Father had turned his face away. Stannis pressed inland through narrow streets slick with soot. Davos fought at his rear, rallying columns of Stormlanders. Above them, the great September spells tolled in panicked discord, yet another deeper note rode the air. A slow, resounding boom like a heartbeat. Davos realized it echoed the cadence of the drum Melisandre beat aboard Lady's Mercy, still anchored in the bay. Each strike was answered by pulses of crimson flame that danced along Stannis' sword edge, licking steel without searing it. Tywin Lannister was riding north with half his strength. The Tyrell host had not yet joined him. Only the City Watch and a handful of gold cloaks barred Stannis' road to the Red Keep. Many cloaks flung down their swords when they saw the king in the Fireheart stalk toward them unburned. Others fled outright, scattering into alleys. By midday, the gates of the outer ward groaned. Stannis' rams battered, and crimson tongues fluttered from every embrasure. Inside, Cersei stood on the threshold of Maegor's holdfast, clutching a vial of strangler meant for Tommen's lips should the walls fall. When news reached her that the hound Sandor Clegane had deserted, she nearly dashed the poison down her own throat. But the holdfast did not fall that day. Behind Stannis' army, from the southwest, a great roar arose like a storm tide. Renly's green-golden standard swirling atop a sea of silver roses. The Tyrells had come at last, though Tywin had not. At their head rode Ser Loras, tears streaming behind his helm, for rumor of Shireen's fate had reached Highgarden and shattered what little faith the Knight of Flowers once held in chivalry. The Tyrells hit Stannis' rearguard while smoke still rose from the docks. Knights of the Reach tore through lines of Florent spears. Horn calls tangled. Men screamed. The battle for the capital twisted upon itself, armies colliding amid charred streets. The city became a furnace consuming flesh and iron alike. Stannis' forward thrust faltered less than a quarter-mile from the Red Keep's gatehouse. Davos urged retreat to secure their ships, but Stannis drove deeper, sword blazing like a brand. Again Davos saw wildfire, yet this time not the alchemist's unnatural flame but a glow born of grief and zeal. Each swing seemed guided by invisible winds, carving paths through Tyrell knights. Yet numbers wear down miracles. For every yard Stannis gained, 2 sons of the Reach pushed him back. Night fell soot-black, the moon veiled by smoke. Fires dotted the city like dying stars. Davos huddled wounded men into shattered taverns, searching for his king. Melisandre walked unharmed through battle lines. Sparks fled her crimson skirts. Arrowheads hissed into ash before they could touch her. She passed Davos and touched his cheek with cool fingers. "The night is long," she whispered, "but we have fed the dawn." "All I see is ruin," Davos muttered. "You see only what the darkness allows. Look again when the last ember dies and the east is bright." She drifted away between flames. Davos slumped, bone-weary. Far off a child cried for her mother amidst toppled stalls. He tasted blood and smoke and salt tears he could not name. Across the bay, the charred remnant of a Lannister Drummond bobbed against the shore, forgotten. Within its blackened hull, a lone rat scurried over casks of green liquid cracked but strangely inert, as though the substance had lost its wicked soul. The creature nibbled the cork of one, squeaked, and fled. Above, the sky churned, clouds edged crimson by the glow of 1,000 fires. No stars shone. Yet to the north, over the King's Road, the first hint of dawn touched the horizon in pale gold. Its light brushed the sea, and where the wave tips caught that color they blazed, for an instant, like a girl's smile across her father's desk. Stannis knelt beside a dying man whose guts steamed in the cool pre-dawn. The soldier's eyes were already glazing, yet when they fell upon the king, they brightened. Stannis clasped his hand until pulse slipped away. Rising, he turned toward the Red Keep's walls looming above smoke. Somewhere within that maze, Cersei Lannister still clutched her poisoned comfort. Joffrey screamed at servants. Tyrion lay wounded or fled. Victory lay within reach yet out of grasp. Behind him, the Tyrell host regrouped by torchlight. Their banners drooped, heavy with ash. Ser Loras prowled astride a foam-flecked destrier, seeking the king who had broken his world. Dawn's first breath painted the buds on his surcoat a dull rose. Stannis inhaled. The air tasted of char and prophecy. He recalled Melisandre's words. Sacrifice purchases victory. What price remained? He had given the only treasure he'd ever possessed. If that blood did not buy the Iron Throne, then he was truly damned without purpose, a kinslayer and kingslayer of his own line. He looked to the east. A ribbon of red gold widened, and the smoke thinned, spiraling upward like incense. At his belt, the steel of Lightbringer pulsed faintly beneath soot. Melisandre had named it thus, though Stannis doubted any sword could be the legendary blade Azor Ahai once forged through the heart of a beloved wife. The tale felt too cruelly familiar now, yet the steel was warm. Footsteps approached. Davos, helm dented, cloak torn, knelt. "Your Grace." Tyrell numbers swell. We may yet cut back to the fleet and launch anew once we've licked our wounds. Stannis studied the horizon.
No.
If we retreat, we lose our miracle. The men saw the river burn green in their nightmares. Yet we crossed unscathed and broke the chain. They believe. Belief must be fed or it starves. Davos's jaw tightened. They have been fed enough blood for one lifetime. Not enough. Not while a Lannister sits the throne. Stannis raised his sword. We attack at first light. Melisandre appeared, red robes swirling, eyes reflecting the nascent sun. The Lord of Light approves, she said. Already his servants stir. Watch the walls. As dawn spilled across King's Landing, a hush rippled through battle lines. Up upon the ramparts of the Red Keep, flames leapt from every arrow slit, but they were not green. They were red and gold and violet, forming strange sigils none could name. Soldiers pointed, murmuring. Some fell to knees. A wind blew from the bay, rattling banners. Sparks drifted like fireflies. The gates of the Red Keep creaked open, not smashed or burned, but swung wide as if unlocked from within. A lone figure strode out, cloak of crimson silk, serpent staff in hand. The alchemist Haleen? No, taller, younger, a woman. Her hair blazed redder than any banner. She raised the staff. The flames on the walls bowed toward her like wheat before scythe. Stannis felt hope coil about his heart. A cruel snake, tight and convincing. But as he stepped toward her, the Tyrell trumpets blared and Loras charged. The ground quaked beneath hooves. Stannis spurred forward, Lightbringer raised high, as dawn's full splendor broke and painted every blade with blood and gold. The first hour of that second day burned itself into memory. Clash of rose and heart banners, streets slick with oil and gore. The Red Keep's gates yawning, unanswered, behind Melisandre's blazing silhouette.
Stilrang, horses screamed.
Davos lost sight of his king amid a press of green cloak. He cut through them, yet when he reached the corpse-strewn market square, Stannis was gone. He found only a single gauntlet, fingers still curled tight, nails blackened by soot. Lightbringer lay beside it, quenched, blade dark. The hilt was sticky. No body remained to claim it. Davos knelt, closed his eyes, and felt the trembling of the earth beneath him. Hoofbeats, drums, screams, sermons of fire. He lifted the gauntlet, pressed it to his brow, and swore to find the man it had belonged to, living or dead. Above, the rising sun set the smoke aflame, and the city burned on. Far beyond the walls, across the river and the fields of the Reach, ravens bore tidings. The crowned stag of Dragonstone had spilled the blood of his own line and marched beneath a sorcerer's banner. The Tyrell host bathed the streets of King's Landing in rose red. The Lannister queen cowered. The realm teetered upon a knife honed by grief and prophecy. Small folk whispered of red shadows walking, of wildfire quenched by tears, of a little princess who sang as she burned and whose song still echoed in the dawn wind. Some swore they felt warmth upon their cheeks when no hearth burned, as though a child's final breath lingered to comfort a kingdom that had not deserved her. Night returned, and with it a hush heavy as wet sand. Corpses lay stacked like cordwood along the mud gate. Wolves prowled the charnel barges drifting east. In the sept, the high septon lay dead upon the altar, lips black with strangler. Cersei's poison was missing from her sleeve, yet Tommen slept, unkissed by death, guarded by a single white dog that no one remembered owning. Inside Maegor's holdfast, frantic searchers found Queen Cersei sprawled in the throne room, gown torn, crown dented, eyes staring. No blade pierced her flesh, no mark marred her throat. She was stone, as if all her tears had fled. Beside her on the marble floor lay a copper coin minted with the face of a laughing child. Beyond the walls, Davos Seaworth gripped Lightbringer's hilt, feeling the chill now that the blade no longer stirred with red life. He had reclaimed the sword but not his king. Melisandre walked beside him, serene, her ruby pulsing with each heartbeat. "The game is not ended," she said. "Only the board overturned. Tomorrow we shall set the pieces anew." Davos spat blood. "You promised victory. I promise dawn, she answered. Dawn has come. He followed her gaze eastward, where the sky paled anew, colors bleeding into morn. Somewhere in that distance rode Stannis Baratheon, either pursued or in pursuit. The realm would feel the weight of his choice for generations. He knew that with a certainty as cold as dragon glass. Whatever fires yet burned, they were kindled from the ashes of a little girl's lullaby. And the lullaby would not fade, not while men remembered heat or light or grief. It clung to the wind and to every flicker of red flame on ruined ramparts, a song without words, echoing through dawn after dawn, reminding all who heard that the price of crowns is paid not in gold, but in innocence and irrevocable shadow. Davos Seaworth eased Lightbringer into a canvas-wrapped bundle before dawn's thin edge could expose the blade's sullen glow. The sword felt heavier absent its fire, as if the vanished flame had been hollowing it from within. Atop the ruins of a pottery-maker's shop, walls blasted by burning pitch, roof a jagged mouth of splintered rafters. He and a score of Stormlanders huddled against the chill gusts racing off the river. Everywhere below lay the hush of spent carnage. Toppled market stalls, gnawed beams, carts overturned like dead beetles, the Fox and Funnel Tavern still coughing sparks into the pearled morning. The men whispered of red phantoms walking the streets, igniting arrow shafts to ash at a glance. Davos hushed them. Superstition bred panic faster than wildfire, and they had scant courage to spare. Yet he could not banish the echoes of Shireen's dying screams, nor the sight of Stannis vanishing into the melee. His mailed shoulders swallowed by a wave of Tyrell horse and scarlet-cased spears. Somewhere in that labyrinth of smoke-slick alleys and broken masonry the king lived, or perished, in silence. He sent 2 scouts thin as hounds to nose the city's entrails. They melted into shadows, blades drawn. Moments later, hoofbeats clattered on the far side of the square. Sergeants cursed, swords rasped free, but only a lone destrier thundered past riderless, flanks streaked with soot, saddle braided in Tyrell green and gold. The animal snorted steam, skidded, and tore down Fishmonger's Row. Ominous, Davos judged. Cavalry without riders meant new widows before sunrise. Not long after, Jon Fossaway, the younger knight with the red apple sigil, stumbled into view dragging a Lannister crossbow by its stirrup ring. His rose and fruit surcoat was ripped open, revealing a quilted gambeson black with blood. Davos leveled a dirk. Yield. Fossaway raised empty palms. I come to speak. Men allowed him under watchful blades. The youth's eyes darted to Davos's bundle. Word is your king still stalks the lower city. Ser Loras offers parley. Safe conduct to the September of Baelor by noon bell. If Stannis surrenders the Red Witch, the Reach will open Maegor's gates to him. They'll crown him over Joffrey's corpse and call it justice, so long as Melisandre burns for her sins. Davos's laugh rasped like gravel. Stannis spill the blood of his flame serpent? The realm would sooner see wolves fly. He waved the boy away. Fossaway doggedly remained. I have cousins dead in Flea Bottom, he whispered. Babes charred in cradles. Your princess's wail carried across the bay last fortnight. This war's gone rancid. Someone must scrape the maggots out. You scrape? Davos asked. I'll hold the bucket while the king chooses which knife to use. Davos sent him back with silence for an answer. When the young knight vanished into dawn's bruise, Davos exhaled frost. The air stank of alder smoke and melted pitch, but under it lingered another scent. Clove and cinnamon, vaguely sweet, the perfume Melisandre favored. He followed the faint trail down littered lanes. He found her in Cobbler's Square amid corpses stacked knee-high for burning. She had seized a toppled stone arch as her pulpit. Crimson robes pooled about her feet, ruby at her throat pulsing like a second heart. Before her knelt throngs of small folk, soot-begrimed, hair singed. Some wept, some rocked and crooned. Melisandre raised arms skyward where gray banners of smoke fluttered. The night's shadow thickens, she intoned, voice carrying like cathedral bells. But dawn is born of sacrifice. The child of kings' blood fed the flame. Now only believe and the shadow shall pass. A beggar woman cried. Where is our own little ones? burned with hers. Melisandre's smile was pity. They embraced smoke for want of hope. Give them hope, and flame will cradle rather than devour. Davos's gorge rose. He pushed through the press. You speak of hope? Your pyres lit these streets. Lord Seaworth. She regarded him as one might a restless hearth coal. Hope is the fire we feed. Give it fuel, it warms. Deny it, and cold ends all warmth. Cold's not what killed Shireen. Unbelief killed her. Hesitation. The king's doubt forced the god to demand proof. She stepped closer. The ruby's inner light flickered at tempo with Davos's pulse. You still doubt. Doubt shackles destiny. I doubt any god that drinks children's screams. Would you prefer a world where thousands more scream instead? The choice was coin or crown, Onion Knight. The coin is spent. She turned back to the crowd, leaving him trembling. Somewhere south, bells tolled, dull, erratic. Not the scepter's clangor, but iron on iron. A blacksmith's forge. Davos realized it came from the street of steel where the fires of Lawler Temple, raised overnight by Melisandre's servants, housed a new forge for casting blades etched with her sigil. Every anvil strike seemed a heartbeat for this newborn city of ash. Within Maegor's holdfast, Tyrion Lannister lay fever-sweating in a silk-hung chamber, half of King's Landing's urban chaos muted by thick shutters. Maester Franken, fetched from Casterly Rock by Raven, had drained a flagon of dream wine into the imp, but still Tyrion's torn face throbbed. He dwelt in a twilight between agony and drifting memory. Blackwater's howl of wildfire, Joff's shrieks, the hammer of Stannis' drum. Bronn perched on a windowsill sharpening a dagger. Reckon the day's quiet, he observed. That means bodies being carted out before folk start counting who's king. Tyrion croaked. Who is king? Bronn spit metal shavings. Kings are like lice in the city. Scratch and another crawls out. Word says Queen Cersei's taken ill. Illness? Of what sort? The sort you wake up stiff from. Bronn winked. Tyrion tried to rise, cursed shredding pain. Fetch Podrick. I need him dressed as a washerwoman. We must reach father. Your lion sire's still 100 leagues away. Then we bleed in his absence. Tyrion's single good eye fixed on Bronn. Find Varys. He's always where the blood is thickest. Varys was, in truth, below the Red Keep in candlelit tunnels, conversing with a girl no older than 9. She wore filthy rags, but her boots were new, soft-soled. The queen fell where? He asked. On the floor before the horrid chair. She lisped, thumbed the coin she'd found. She made no sound. Only the big dog growled. Dog! A white dog with red eyes. Ghosts awake. Varys sighed. We must bury her privately. The city cannot see its lioness carrion pecked yet. Footsteps echoed. Ser Balon Swan ducked into the tunnel. Spider. The boy king's asking for his mother. Tell him she rests, and fetch Grand Maester Pycelle, if he's not fainted again. They'll call this sorcery, Swan murmured. Varys fingered his ring. Let them. When men tire of blaming sorcerers, they'll look to swords. We must ensure the proper sword appears. Beyond the mud gate, Loras Tyrell regrouped his battered lines. Banners crisped, armor mottled with tar. His gilded helm was gone. Sweat streaked his curls. Ser Garland rode up with a grim report. Half their knights lost, a third afoot, supply wagons aflame. Yet Highgarden's host still dwarfed Stannis' remnants. Bring me the Onion Knight, Loras commanded. Offer him a prisoner's wine and a traitor's noose. Garland frowned. Davos Seaworth is no lord of lands. He'll die forgotten. He carried word for Stannis' treason. Forgotten, yet necessary. Loras spat blood. We burn the rot away. Davos never saw the envoys. By dusk he'd whisked his wounded through postern gates into the burnt shell of the dragon pit, safer than open streets. Dragons long dead offered stone wings under which to hide. There he knelt beside Mathos, one arm bound in makeshift sling, eyes fevered. Father? The lad rasped. Did she scream long? Too honest to lie, Davos nodded. Mathos turned away. tears cutting tracks through grime. Then there's no throne worth the price. Night stole over the pit. Stars glimmered faint behind soot haze. The moon was a bronze coin. Ravens croaked from broken arches. Davos posted watches, but sleep found none. When deepest dark pressed down, he rose and crept among men sprawled like spent arrows. He carried Lightbringer unwrapped. Its dead steel caught a coal-red glimmer from campfire remnants. He walked the tiers, descending toward the cavernous dragon vaults. There, among toppled rib-like beams, knelt Melisandre. No torch in hand, yet a pearl-scarlet radiance glowed about her palms, illuminating rough scales of fossil-black stone, dragon skulls. She traced the contours of Balerian's fangs as though reading scripture. "You risk much, priestess, wandering alone." Davos's whisper bounced like a thrown pebble down abandoned corridors. "I am never alone while flame lives. Your flame died on my king's sword." He let Lightbringer scrape stone. "Tell me where Stannis is. Everywhere fire burns." She rose gracefully. A lord of ash must step through flame to be reborn. Tonight the city births him anew. While we search blind, your eyes are burdened by grief. Put them away. She closed his fingers over the sword's crossguard. Follow the heat underfoot. When stone pulses warm, you tread his path. Madness. Yet the slab beneath Davos's boots did feel warmer, a faint throb rising from Dragonmont's volcanic heart far beneath. Melisandre's smile indicated she felt it too. "He goes to the belly," she said, "to wake stone dragons." Davos recoiled. "Old tales, eggshells and dreams. Dreams kindle deeds. He will need you when the shadows crawl out." She stepped past. He snatched her wrist, but fire flared and his palm blistered. Cursing, he let go. She vanished into darkness, leaving only ruby light fading. In cellars beneath the street of silk, a giant awoke. Ser Gregor Clegane lay shackled, head swathed, wounds leaking yellow pus. Qyburn bent above him with leeches and saws. The hound fled, the ex-maester whispered, and the imp rots. King Joffrey trembles. But you can carve a new piece. Clegane's only answer was a gurgle. Qyburn's smile sharpened. We carve truths into flesh. The Tyrells will soon control the keep. If we slice their rose at the stalk, the lion may yet roar. Before dawn's rim, horns brayed outside the dragon pit. Loras Tyrell appeared under truce banners, helm feathered white. Davos emerged with 30 men. They faced each other across broken paving stones haloed by torchlight. Loras's eyes were rimmed red, but his words crisp. "Stormlander, yield your men and you'll see trial, not torment." Davos shook his head. "Trial by knights who butchered children in the alleys? Children burned because your king slaughtered his own. Fire spreads." Loras's hand trembled upon reins. "Step aside. Melisandre must answer. She claims the Seven answered by quenching wildfire. She claims you saw it." "I saw sorcery snuff sorcery," Loras hissed. "Is that your realm's future? Warring bonfires. Better a bonfire than the rot that sat on the Iron Throne." Swords rasped out, but before blood could spill, a deep boom shook the pit, stone groaning. Dust roiled from cracks. Men staggered. Davos sensed heat pulse beneath feet same as earlier, stronger now. From shattered archways poured red illumination like furnace doors flung wide. The ground heaved. A section of vaulted floor collapsed, revealing tunnels glowing within. Out of that fiery throat strode Stannis Baratheon. Armor missing, cloak half-burned, beard singed. Yet his eyes were twin coals banked hot. Behind him followed shapes half-shadowed. Dozen gaunt men armored in black glass and ringmail, blades faintly luminous. Their faces bone-pale, eyes reflecting flame. Men reborn or shades summoned. Each carried an iron lantern that flickered red though no flame was visible inside. Stannis halted between Davos and Loras. Silence swallowed the pit except for the hum of unseen fire. He spoke, voice raw. "Brother's son sits a stolen chair while lions bicker with roses. I shall plant neither beast nor blossom, but justice." Loras's mare sidestepped, snorting at heat. Your justice murdered a child of your own seed. Stannis's nostrils flared. A king is father to all. I chose the realm, and left none worth ruling. Stannis drew Lightbringer from Davos's shocked grasp. The sword flared, this time alive, blade burning a clear red gold. The strange lantern-bearers knelt. Loras flinched at the blaze. Davos's heart lurched. The hilt he'd carried cold now blazed in its true master's hand. What oath binds you? Stannis asked the Tyrell knight.
Honor.
Love. Loras's voice broke. Honor surrenders to truth. Love surrenders to light. Stannis lifted the sword point. Kneel and cleanse your blood in flame, or match mine steel and die. Loras's gaze flicked to Davos, then to the smoldering sword. Behind him, his retinue quailed. Some backed their horses. The Reach host, bloodied and leaderless with Lord Mace still days away, would suffer in morale if their beloved flower knight burned. Yet if he yielded, Tyrell pride might wither quicker than wildfire. He dismounted. Helm off, curls limp with sweat, he sank to one knee. I'll not fight burned sorcery with more death. Do what you must, Lord. Stannis lowered the sword to Loras's shoulder. Flame hissed but did not scorch flesh. Serve me. Kneel not to Stannis but to the realm saved. I serve its people. Then rise again. The sword's glow dimmed to ember. Ride to the Red Keep. Command they open gates for King Stannis. Murmurs rippled. Tyrell captains shifted. Loras rose, stunned. They'll name me traitor. Stannis' stare cut like frost. They'll name you Queenslayer if you slew Cersei. What matter names? The realm bleeds while men quibble over titles. Davos stepped forward. Your grace, half the city hunts your blood. They'll think this more witchcraft. Let them. Stannis lifted Lightbringer high. A roar of heat burst above the blade. Flame twisting into the shape of a stag leaping, horns ablaze. Men gasped. Stone dragons overhead caught the glow, eyes seeming to stir. The fires died, leaving the roar echoing. Come daylight, Stannis said. Justice marches. In Maegor's throne room, Tommen Baratheon clutched Ser Pounce beneath the Iron Throne's talons. The small cat bristled at distant rumbles. Pycelle dabbed sweat from the boy's brow, hands trembling. Doors banged. Tall shadows spilled. Qyburn ushered Ser Gregor Clegane, face half-swathed, one eye burning fever yellow, into the hall. The mountain's greatsword trailed sparks. Pycelle squeaked. Ser Gregor, the king, needs a shield, Qyburn murmured. He set a gaunt hand on Tommen's shoulder. An unbreakable one. Outside, Tyrell outriders neared. Ahead rode Loras Tyrell holding a peace banner. On the battlements, gold cloaks shifted uncertainly while newly converted red priests lit torches despite sunrise nearing. Davos led the vanguard. His wounded son marched at his side, sling replaced by a steel-capped staff. Behind strode Stannis with his lantern guard, silent men whose eyes contained coals. Melisandre glided among them, whispering prayers that made banners ripple though breeze was still. When they reached the gate of the gods, Loras signaled. Portcullis groaned. Stannis halted. He turned to Davos. This city devoured honor. We mend its bones anew. Davos nodded, though dread coiled. He saw the lantern guard's alabaster skin and began to suspect those men were not men at all. Portcullis rose. Trumpets called. The procession entered. Small folk lined the streets, some kneeling, some cursing. The red priests flanked avenues wreathed in incense. Above, on the Red Keep's highest tower, smoke drifted from a single window, Queen Cersei's private solar where her corpse still lay. Stannis crossed the drawbridge. Loras peeled off to find his sister Marjorie, rumored confined under guard. Davos followed Stannis into the throne room. There he froze. Ser Gregor loomed before the Iron Throne, sword poised. Tommen huddled behind its cold iron spikes. Qyburn smiled thinly. Bend the knee or the kingling's blood sprinkles these stones tonight. Lightbringer gleamed. So be it, Stannis growled, advancing. Before steel met, Melisandre murmured a single Valyrian word. Every lantern in the guard burst with scarlet radiance. Shadows flooded outward, 12 silhouettes rippling like banners in windless air. They slid across marble, twined up the mountain's moon-colored armor. Gregor snarled as his sword clanged down, suddenly leaden. Shadows wormed into visor slits. His roar fell to choked gurgle. He dropped, thrashing. In 3 breaths he was still. Tommen screamed. Qyburn fled to a side door only to meet a lantern shade cloaking him like ink. His scream ended abruptly. Silence. The iron stairs creaked as Stannis ascended. Each footfall rang through vaults hung with banners scorched by wildfire. Davos knelt where he stood. Across the chamber, a handful of gold cloaks threw down helms and followed suit. Atop the throne's jagged seat, Stannis settled, face carved of basalt. He laid Lightbringer across his knees. The sword glowed softly, pulsing with the city's new heartbeat. Tommen sniffled. Stannis gestured Davos bring him forward. The boy's eyes, blue and bright behind tears, widened at the sword's glow. "You hold no guilt," Stannis said, voice measured. "Your blood is mine as much as Robert's." He touched Tommen's brow, sign of blessing or claim. The throne room watched, breathless. Davos rose. His king had seized his crown, but the method, shadows and pyres, cast a pall heavier than the smoke outside. The small folk would judge soon enough. He recalled Mathos's words, "No throne worth that price." Melisandre stepped forward, ruby blazing. The night falls elsewhere. The north swarms with snow and whites. The realm's true war begins. Stannis's jaw tightened. "Then we ride when south is shod with order. Order needs a queen." Her gaze swept the hall. Margaery Tyrell stood in the doorway escorted by Ser Loras, father dead in the reach. Melisandre's smile flickered firelight. Rose and flame unite, and darkness weeps. Margaery lifted her chin despite eyes reddened from cell confinement. She took in throne, corpse of the mountain, kneeling knights. A realm pivoted about her next breath. "Your Grace," she said to Stannis, voice steadier than stone. "House Tyrell seeks only the realm's peace." Stannis' stare held the weight of stone and prophecy. Peace demands roots in soil, not ash. He sheathed Lightbringer with a hiss like quenched iron. "Let the rose sink roots in Dragonstone's black earth. Wed me, and together we mend the realm." Gasps echoed. Davos felt history tilt upon an unseen fulcrum. Margaery's green gaze flicked to Melisandre, then to Loras. The Knight of Flowers lowered his helm. "I will wed you," she said at length, voice a dagger wrapped in velvet. "But on one vow, no more children burned for crowns." Melisandre opened her mouth. Stannis raised a hand. "No more children," he agreed, though lines around his eyes etched deeper. Memory of smoke and a doll's smile. Bells tolled. Dawn's full light surged through broken windows. Dust motes spun like sparks. The crowd inhaled as though surfacing from deep water. Outside, ravens already winged north, bearing tidings to Winterfell, to Riverrun, to the Eyrie. Fire had won the river battle, but the price had seeded darker storms. A king now reigned upon iron thorns, flanked by rose and shadow, sword weeping slow embers. In every hearth where stories traveled, children whispered of a princess's lullaby turned to ashes on Dragonstone, and of the king who chose flames over fatherhood to save a realm that might never forgive him. Far to the east, in the wastes of Valyria, winds stirred pale dust over shattered spires. Deep in caves below the smoking sea, eggs twitched. Cracks feathered across shells to an unheard rhythm. The first heartbeat of stone changed to scale, echoing a song carried west on shrieking gulls and crimson-streaked dawns. And in Winterfell's Godswood, a direwolf pup paused at a frozen pool, hackles lifting. Beneath the ice, shadows slithered, shapes of antlered stags made of living night. The pup's howl rose to a moon half-hidden by cloud. Ravens took flight. War was not ended. It had only kindled new flame, hotter, crueler, promising either forge or funeral pyre for every soul in Westeros. The choices left were few, the chances thin, and the songs yet to be sung would bleed in red and black across a world already scorched by one father's fatal faith. A hush like the breath held between heartbeats settled over King's Landing in the first weeks that followed Stannis' bloody accession. Smoke still drifted from gutted granaries and charred river piers, curling up to stain the sunrise, but the clang of hammers on shattered tiles and the creak of hoists hauling new beams had replaced the shrieks of battle. Where rats gnawed the corpses of slain gold cloaks along the street of flour, beggars now tugged the dead by night into wagons bound for communal pyres, earning copper queens from red-robed acolytes who blessed every lifting of each limp hand. Merchants told one another that ash was fertile. The new king would sow order in it. They whispered it as a prayer or a warning or both. Every evening, torches traced a scarlet river up Aegon's high hill. Columns of Melisandre's disciples bearing oil-soaked banners stitched with the burning heart. The red keep loomed above, half its windows dark where court ladies once exchanged songs of tourneys and lovers' favors. Now the halls smelled of fresh-cut pine, sweat, and strange incense from beyond the narrow sea. Courtiers trimmed rose motifs onto crimson cloaks, uncertain whether lion embroideries would see them flayed or merely ignored. The war was not ended. Each smiling pledge of fealty might be rescinded when next moon waxed. Yet in the quiet between supper's last course and the soft toll of the maester's hour, men dared to dream of peace. Davos Seaworth tasted none of that dream. He stalked corridors lined with black velvet to muffle echoes, searching for whispers of rebellion before they hatched. Since the day the Lantern Guard's shadows strangled the mountain beneath the Iron Throne, he had carried Lightbringer's empty scabbard at his hip. The king had returned the weapon to him as sign of trust, or of burden. Stannis' red sword flared only in its master's fist. In Davos's hands it lay cold and dull as any garden spade. But Stannis had commanded, "Guard this, until I must wield it in the true war. No thief may soil its promise." So Davos guarded it, the weight constant at his belt, a reminder that oaths could cut deeper than steel. The king's hours were devoured by counsel. Ser Axel Florent drafted edicts to restore taxes suspended by the Lannisters. Grand Maester Franken mixed potions for burned men and starved babes. Melisandre presided over each session, ruby pulsing. Yet the high priest rarely spoke. She watched. When tempers flared, when Lord Giles Rosby coughed blood onto his sleeves arguing grain tithes, she raised one slender hand and tempers cooled like iron plunged in snow. Rumor sped that to meet her red gaze too long was to see flickers of one's own death in the lenses of her eyes. Rumor might be a lie, but men averted their faces nonetheless. Stannis addressed rebellion before it birthed teeth. He rode to the guild halls accompanied only by the silent Lantern Guard. Their pale faces glimmered in torchlight, lips stitched with ash-black threads. They never spoke, never ate in sight of men. Some swore they were corpses animated by fire. Others muttered of Lysine mummers with tongues removed. Davos suspected neither explanation. When he passed near, he felt the lantern men breathe. Slow, measured, cold. Whatever they were, they chilled the courage of tough Sellswords more than ranks of gold cloaks ever had. When Stannis called guild leaders rank with bribes and decreed confiscation of storerooms bursting with hoarded barley, the guilds obeyed. When he forbade coinage minted with Joffrey's face, demanding new stag and rose silver pennies stamped in Dragonstone's furnace, the moneyers bent knee before the furnace's flame and cast their dies anew. To placate the city's bruised belly, Marjorie Tyrell ladled barley soup in the poorest districts. Davos watched from a balcony of cracked marble as she straightened the rags of a feverish child, pressing a warm barley cake into tiny hands. Candlelight wove gold into her unbound curls. She looked every inch a queen of mercy, though her marriage vows still lay a moon distant. The royal sept must be cleansed of soot and mourning stain before new bells rang. In her wake clustered knights of the Reach, blades peace-bonded, palms on hilts. Their presence reminded tavern gossips that the Tyrell rose had not been uprooted, only transplanted, roots deep, thorns sharp. Yet the city skeleton still clicked with old bones. Tyrion Lannister, face half-healed, limped through stealthy tunnels trailing Varys like a lantern shading its own glow. They met beneath the Guild Hall of Alchemists, in chambers rank with sour wildfire residue. On a stone table lay scatterings of parchment. Troop counts, harbor manifests, letters from Casterly Rock unopened. Tyrion cupped a flickering lamp and whispered, "My Lord Father's silence is the loudest noise in Westeros. Either he rots in ambush on the road, or he waits for me to stir the hornet's nest so he may strike two foes at once." Varys adjusted his silken collar. "The realm has birthed hydras before. One may lop off heads, only to see more bloom. We must teach the hydra to devour itself." His glance flicked toward a spider ink map dotted with tokens. "The Reach Lords love their maid of flowers. If Stannis weds her yet spares no man who curses Lawler, what becomes of faith in the Seven?" "A dagger between ribs," Tyrion guessed. "Precisely. We water the rose with rumors of red witchery preying on children. Let the small folk fear their infants next." Tyrion's eyes narrowed. "Fear is easy, but blood easier. If Tyrell's turn, Stannis will burn the city again to keep it." Varys bowed faintly. "Yet ashes cannot clutch a scepter. We would rebuild with new architects." Tyrion traced the scar that gouged his brow. "Rebuild? I'd rather drink myself into forgetfulness in Volantis." "Ah, but the world remembers even if we forget." Varys rolled a parchment, slid it across. "Your brother's gold-handed reputation limps behind him. If Ser Jaime reaches King's Landing before Lord Tywin, hearts might follow his banner instead of the Lion Patriarchs. Plant him discreetly within the Kingsguard again. Offer absolution for Cersei's end. Claim Marjorie's hand is queen enough. Let Jaime kneel to Stannis. Then graciously slip a blade through one paw and the rose will wither." Tyrion studied the plan. "You risk much for a realm that calls you eunuch. I risk for the common folk. Crowns seldom feed them, but wars always eat them." "And burning a princess?" Tyrion asked. Varys's mouth tightened, a rare fissure in his mask. "Some flames scorch beyond healing. I douse what embers I can." He bowed. "See that Ser Jaime approaches by the postern on the eastern hill, for nights hence." Above them, on the Red Keep's terraces, Davos gathered his courage to confront the king. After council, he approached Stannis as the Lantern Guard drifted to their niches. Flame-rippled banners beat overhead. "Your Grace," Davos began, voice low. "The small folk murmur that the Red God now rules the Seven Kingdoms. They fear every hearth may one day demand their babes." Stannis's face, carved in red gloom, did not flinch. "Let them fear. Fear breeds obedience. Obedience without love breeds revolt. Love? Ask the realm what love gifted them beneath Robert's japes and Joffrey's cruelty. I offer justice. Love is a coin for singers." Davos drew breath. "I buried my sons for you and would again to save the realm. But a realm saved by shadows does not heal. It festers. We must give them proof you will not burn more children." "Did I not vow it to the Rose Girl?" The city heard. Stannis's jaw flexed. "Better they fear relapse than grow complacent. Then show them mercy. Free those gold cloaks imprisoned for refusing to kneel. Give bread to the septas tending the orphanage. Let me take the river garrison's grain to them." Stannis considered, eyes glimmering. "Take half," he said at last. "We starve our armies if we empty the barns." Davos bowed. He sensed a victory small as a candle flame against a storm, yet he clutched it. Every candle mattered when night thickened. Night thickened indeed in the north. Beyond the shattered wall at Castle Black, Tormund Giantsbane reigned in his garron atop a ridge of ice, glaring southward. Beneath star-cluttered sky, the wildling host sprawled in half-frozen camps, their numbers thinned by cold and white wolves. Fires glimmered like fox eyes in dark. Rattleshirt and Harma Dogshed argued over meager horseflesh and the whites that prowled beyond sight. Tormund spat. "We bled giants crossing this cursed wall. Now the kneelers drown each other in green blood while the dead raise armies of snow." Val the spearwife approached, hair white as frost. "A raven returns from Jon Snow," she said, voice brittle. "He calls you friend still, begs you fortify Castle Black. The wall's magic fades. Tormund chuckled without mirth. Walls magic, Southron crowns. My back's to fires that can't warm and blades that can't bleed the silent ones. If Snow can't rally his brothers, let him flee south and warn their red-crowned king. Inside Castle Black's armory, Jon Snow laid parchment before Maester Aemon's clouded eyes. Light flickered on the ancient's milky pupils. The new stag and rose coin, Jon explained. Stannis sits the Iron Throne. Aemon's thin smile seemed to glimpse distant songs. The realm shuffles pieces on a board that drifts toward the abyss. What aid does your king promise? None. Jon's voice cracked. His ravens ceased when Shireen, the Night's Watch stands alone. Aemon rested a feather-light hand on Jon's wrist. Then you must carry 2 torches. Guard this wall and relight hope in a king's heart. Jon's mind turned to a red-headed witch's eyes gleaming like coals, to a fletched arrow notched for the throat of the woman he loved, to memories of vows stretched thin as ice. I will send another raven, he said at last, though he knew parchment seldom melted ice. On Dragonstone, stone tremors woke hatchery maesters at dawn. The ancient citadel had long rumbled with the mountain's slumberous groans, but these quakes possessed rhythm. 3 shutters, pause, 2. Rattling chandeliers chipped black dust onto rush-strewn floor. Maester Pylus, newly appointed castellan of stone by Stannis, hurried to crypt chambers where dragon skulls nested in cobwebs. Torchlight traced hairline cracks across obsidian walls, cracks glowing faint crimson, as though veins pumped molten blood beneath skin of stone. Pylus wrote hurried cipher to King's Landing, sealing it with lead. But cinders burst from the fireplace like a swarm of burning moths, and the parchment curled before it left his palm. In the dancing coals he saw the silhouette of a girl with a patchwork face, smiling. He fled then, steps echoing down basalt corridors, too afraid to wonder if grief had birthed illusions or prophecy. Back in King's Landing, Marjorie Tyrell walked queenless corridors with her grandmother's lessons in mind. Plant roots before petals show. She visited the Silent Sisters to oversee burial of Lannister dead, offering perfumed shrouds. She invited cobblers to repair shoes of orphans conscripted to sweep ashes from sept walls. She laughed lightly at the grim jest of ration breads shaped like fiery hearts. Smiling, she reshaped them into rosebuns before gifting baskets to war widows. The small folk watched, brows lifted. After each gesture, red priests appeared to sing Lawloress praises, but Marjorie thanked the 7 in the same breath, reminding all that mercy bore many names. The faith militant, once broken by the dragon's generations past, stirred among brothers of simple cloth. A one-eyed septon preached at the foot of Baelor's steps that no flame could outshine the mother's love. When gold cloaks arrived to drag him away, the crowd rose in silent protest. The cloaks withdrew, uncertain. Cersei Lannister's corpse lay embalmed in a blackwood coffin in the crypts below. The September rumor insisted red witches had salted her lips so her tongue would never testify against them in the afterlife. Jaime Lannister arrived 3 nights later, cloaked in Hedge Knight's patchwork and escorted by a single sellsword. He entered the crypt alone, removed his glove to stroke his sister's braided hair, and shed 1 tear for childhood's lost to prophecy. No guard hindered him until dawn, when Ser Loras Tyrell, patrolling restless, found the Kingslayer before the mother of his sins. Tension thickened, yet Jaime bowed, placing Lion's sword at Loras's feet. I come to serve the realm, he said, and to mourn. Loras's green gaze softened. Grief recognized grief. He led Jaime to the king. Stannis received the Kingslayer in the Hall of 100 Hearths, lantern guard flanking the dais. Melisandre's ruby winked red in the gloom. Jaime kneeled, hand of gold clinking against flagstone. I killed Ares to protect thousands. Now I kneel to spare thousands more. Stannis studied him. Will you command my southern garrisons as you once held the Kingsguard? My sword, my counsel, my life, until winter's end. And your blood? Melisandre asked softly. Jaime's laughter cracked brittle. My blood spent defending kings who repay with ruin. Take what's left, if flame cares for tarnished blood. Melisandre laid 2 fingers upon his brow. The ruby flared, but no shadows leapt. She withdrew, eyes unreadable. "No song sings in you," she whispered. "Yet a knife of fate may still cut swift." Stannis rose. "Serve, and be judged by deeds, not songs." Jaime's shoulders eased. He was escorted to a cell hung with plain wool blankets. Honor tasted like stale bread, yet bread he had not eaten in years. In the western hills, Asha Greyjoy assembled reavers near Fair Isle, raising Lannister fishing villages to show the lion's absence. Ravens carried word that Stannis' fleet lay anchored in Blackwater's still-tainted tide, while Lord Paxter Redwine's war galleys, having escaped Tyrell control, sailed for the Arbor to harvest wine, ignoring pleas from Wolf's Den emissaries for grain shipments to the Watch. Stannis' council debated splitting forces. Send Davos north via sea to Eastwatch with a tithe of grain, strengthen the wall, and prove mercy. Melisandre opposed. "The true enemy rides with snow shadows, but stone dragons stir. We need the Onion Knight to steer that awakening." Her voice tingled down Davos' spine like frost under cloth. Yet Stannis overruled her. "Davos goes north with 2 Lantern Guard and 4 ships of grain. He will show my mercy to the Night's Watch and return with oaths from northern lords." So it was that a fortnight after Jaime's arrival, Davos stood on the Maiden's Pier beneath shrouded sky, bidding farewell to Mathos, now restored enough to sail. Lightbringer's scabbard he left in Stannis' keeping, symbol of trust. The lantern men awaited on deck, eyes ember dim. Davos wondered if they would freeze at sea or blaze like torches. He prayed not to learn the answer. As the gull-flecked horizon swallowed the masts, King's Landing quivered. Grand Maester Franken took Stannis aside in a candlelit library to whisper of fever clusters lancing through Flea Bottom. Children coughed blood-flecked phlegm. The docks stank of rot. Franken feared it plague. Stannis ordered quarantine, but wagons of grain meant for orphans now sat guarded behind cordons of red priests. Cries for bread rose as loud as temple bells. Marjorie intervened, coaxing Stannis to release half the stores. Her half of the wedding feast, she claimed, and the riot quelled for a day. North of the Neck, Roose Bolton met with Walder Frey beneath canvas smelling of wet fur. Scrolls confirming Stannis' coronation lay on a camp table. "The King of Ash offers pardons." "For swift loyalty," Bolton murmured. "Yet his shadow burned a princess. How long before he burns another?" Lord Walder cackled. "Loyalty is coin that spends only once. Better sell to Father Lion when he roars, or to Boy Wolf if he yet howls." Bolton folded hands like knives. "But wolves are cubs under winter's fong." Above them, snowflakes drifted, fat as moths. Winter crawled. On Dragonstone the cracks in obsidian multiplied, glowing brighter each dusk. Maester Pylus penned scrolls with trembling quill. "Stone sings. We hear beating, like wings against hollow earth." He sealed the letter in lead and prayed the raven outran fire. It did not. Mid-flight, wings aloft, the bird burst into green-gold flame above the narrow sea, ash dissolving like tears in rain. In Eastwatch, Davos' fleet cut through gray swells. Lantern men never slept. They stood beneath forecastle beaks, arms folded, eyes fixed north. When night came, faint red glow seeped from seams of their iron lanterns, casting rigs in bloody silhouette. Sailors murmured prayers. No storm hindered them. Waves parted. Wind kissed sails steady. By the 7th dawn, the wall loomed, frozen thunderhead across horizon. Rime glazed mast ropes. Lantern men still showed no breath mist. Jon Snow greeted Davos with caution near the wharf. "The king burned his daughter. Why should we trust his mercy? Because he sends grain while others send silence," Davos answered, stepping onto crunching ice. "And because winter devours doubters first." Inside Eastwatch's mess hall, Black brothers gaped at steaming kettles of barley stew, at crusty loaves still warm. Some wept. Voices cracked in prayer to the Seven, to the old gods, even to the Red God. Davos watched, heart hitching. If hope could thaw a realm, here seeds might sprout. Yet lantern men stalked corridors, unmoved. One stood before a brazier, flame reflecting in eyes not blinking. A steward bumped him, apologized. The lantern man turned his head as if hearing distant call. Outside, snowflakes hissed on embers. Davos felt a pulse run through the stone. Boom, pause, boom, echo of Dragonstone's tremors. He hurried to right Raven for Stannis when horn blasts split night. 1, 2, 3, an alarm of whites. Beyond the stockade, shuddering shapes lumbered from tree line, eyes pale blue. Snow flew in silver sheaves as arrows streaked. Lantern men strode through open gate, lantern lids flung wide. Crimson fire spilled, serpents of heat twisting in snowstorm. Whites ignited like tinder soaked in oil. Flames roared unnatural red, refusing wind snuff. Black brothers gaped while corpses shriveled. The fire spread across icy drifts, forming sigils of burning hearts. For a heartbeat, night turned dawn. Then silence, smoke, char, and the crackle of embers. Jon Snow stared at Davos. "Your king sends strange shields. Shields forged of grief," Davos said. He feared what price forged them. Back in King's Landing, Melisandre woke in her chambers to the faint cry of newborn stone. She rose, donned scarlet, and climbed the tower of the hand where Stannis brooded. "The eggs quicken," she whispered. 3 hearts beat in earth, begging blood to birth them. Stannis's face set like iron under frost. "I have no more children to spare. Blood of traitors suffices," she purred. "Lannister kin hide in Casterly rock seeds of shadow. Bring them and dragons answer." "No," he clenched. "The realms had dragons. They burned Harrenhal and crowned tyrants. I seek justice, not ruin." "Justice grips sword of fire," she said. The knight's army whitened once a dragon's breath failed. Only fire unending can keep them. Stannis turned to the window, gaze on a dawn brittle as thin ice. "When Davos returns, and when North kneels, we march. I wield Lightbringer against darkness myself. No beasts, no more sacrificed innocents. That is my vow." Melisandre bowed, ruby dulling. Yet as she withdrew, shadows deepened against wall tapestries. Davos's scabbard stood empty behind the throne. Lightbringer waited, dreaming embers. Across narrow alleys, Tyrion Lannister poured arbor red into a chipped cup atop a half-reconstructed balcony. "To vows!" he toasted sourly. Beside him, Varys unfolded parchment. A raven from Pike stating Balon Greyjoy had died on a rope bridge in storm black as pitch. Euron Crow's Eye claimed the Seastone chair and raided Lannisport already. Tyrion chuckled. "The lion's den grows smaller." Varys tapped slender fingers. "A king beset by krakens and snows cannot plant roses deep enough." He met Tyrion's mismatched stare. "Shall we water seeds of doubt?" Tyrion sipped. "I have sister's ghost on my conscience and a scar for every plan. But if ashes birth only more ash, perhaps we set flood to wash clean." He raised the cup. To flood. 3 days later, bells rang for wedding. The royal sept's floors still smelled of lye and crushed rose petals as Stannis Baratheon took Margaery Tyrell's hand. No minstrel sang. Melisandre intoned Valyrian prayers while a trembling septon offered token blessing to appease the faith. When Stannis laid rod of office upon Margaery's brow, ghost of a smile flickered in his beard. She smiled bright as summer, though her eyes measured every night's stance. Lantern men flanked pews, their red-lit lanterns cloaked. Children squirmed under the glow. Feast that night filled the great hall with roasted boar, carp in almond milk, sugared violets. Yet no wine stronger than watered red passed Stannis's lips. Jaime Lannister, allowed place of honor, pledged his gold hand as shield to Queen Margaery. Loras clinked goblets in stiff acceptance. Tyrion jested softly to Podrick that the hall contained enough tension to carve new canyons in Westeros. At midnight, Melisandre led Stannis and Margaery to the queen's apartments, ruby glowing in dark like heart drawn from chest. She whispered over threshold, "Flame binds, flame freeze, walk bright." When she left, Stannis regarded his new queen uncertain as youth at first tilt. She placed gentle fingers on his scarred hand. "We rule a garden of ash," she murmured. Let us plant seeds that flower mercy. He sighed. Mercy is oil and water upon war's flame. Yet he let her guide him to hearth, where they knelt together silent. Outside, Varys's little birds scattered across city rooftops, each clutching scraps of parchment inciting fear of red priests culling babes for dragon eggs. The faith militant stirred. In sept cellars, 7-pointed stars were hammered from kettle brass. Gold cloaks whispered oaths under cloak of night. The hydra learned to bite its necks. And deep below Dragonstone, cracks widened until obsidian chips tinkled to the tunnel floor. From the fissure crawled first steam, then molten light, then the scales of something neither alive nor dead, the newborn twin of fire and stone. Its hiss echoed along basalt halls, out windows shattered by tremors, across Black Sea, carrying a lullaby older than Balerian's roar. A little girl's voice singing softly of dolls and summer fields, her melody weaving with fresh dragon's first rasping cry. Far in the north, Jon Snow felt warmth brush his cheek despite freezing gale. He looked south and wondered whose fire tried to reach him through the night. 500 leagues away, Stannis awoke beside his queen, sweat beading though hearth embers had cooled. In his dream, a sword of living flame clove a wall of endless ice, and shadows fled roaring. When dawn cracked, he rose, took quill and wrote orders. Ravens to Winterfell commanding northern lords to muster beneath Stag and Rose. He sealed with wax and pressed his signet hard enough to crack. In the courtyard, Jaime drilled new recruits while Loras watched. Marjorie poured milk for orphan girls outside September of Baelor. Melisandre knelt before a brazier in the Tower of the Hand, ruby blazing brighter than sunrise. Davos sailed south with news of fiery victory at Eastwatch, unaware that lanternmen whispered in tongues only stone could hear. And in tunnels below King's Landing, Tyrion Lannister lit a candle to inspect dust-caked crates left by alchemists, green shimmer coiling inside glass as if longing for a match's kiss. The board reset. Pieces gleamed anew, yet blood still stained squares unseen. Honor, vengeance, faith, hunger, all advanced under banners red, green, gold, and black. Winter's jaw widened, ready to bite. Dragons stirred, children coughed, kings dreamed. Somewhere Shireen's lullaby wound through flames and frost alike, a haunting thread binding all fates together, reminding every soul that the realm's salvation, or doom, had been purchased once by innocence set aflame, and that such a debt could never truly be paid, only passed on like a shadow following every step deeper into the long night awaiting Westeros. The seaside beneath a slate-gray dawn as Davos Seaworth stood on the quarterdeck of Black Betha, breath misting into the wind that sliced past the rigging like cold steel. Gull cries wheeled overhead, thin, lonely sounds swallowed by the vast hush of the northern horizon where the wall reared in ghostly silhouette. He felt each creak of the deck as though the timbers were his own bones shifting. Weariness had settled into him like frost into old wood. Yet the sight of Castle Black's dark ramparts steadied his pulse. Somewhere beyond that frozen bulk, his king's future, and perhaps the realms, waited to be claimed or lost. Snowflakes drifted sparse upon the deck rail. They did not melt on the lanternmen. The two silent figures stood unmoving at the prow, each clasping an iron lamp whose thick glass panels pulsed with a slow crimson glow. Every night of the voyage they had kept watch, never speaking, never eating, never sheltering from wind or spray. Sailors swore they saw no breath cloud their chins, no blink disturb their ember-bright eyes. They were a riddle Davos dared not confront, yet he had come to rely upon their eerie vigilance, for storms that should have savaged their masts had parted around the convoy as though guided by unseen hands. Westerosi sailors loved omens. They told each other that the Lord of Light himself smoothed their passage. Davos feared a simpler truth, that the same unnatural flame which had devoured an innocent child was shepherding them north to a purpose none could yet guess. Wind snapped the Stag and Rose banner overhead. Mathos, still thin from fever but stubborn as rope knot, leaned on the starboard rail beside his father. "Another league and we make harbor," he said, voice hoarse but eager. "Night's watch will feast us proper. The watch feasts on oats and onion broth, lad." Davos managed to smile. But they'll remember our grain long after any richer fare is gone. Mathos's gaze lingered on the lantern men. They frighten the Black brothers. I hear whispers. Whispers sprout where men sow ignorance. Davos lowered his tone. Yet I confess, even I wonder what beats inside them. Not heart nor blood, Mathos said. When I passed near one last night, the deck between us shimmered red, as if heat rose through oak. Before Davos could reply, the lookout hailed sightings of the harbor chain. Black Betha's trumpeter sounded 2 low notes answered by horns on 3 more cogs heavy with barley and hardtack. Eastwatch's lighthouse sent a wary signal. Green lantern, pause, green lantern. Friendly but questioning. Davos ordered the answering flash, and the ships slowed under shortened sail. On the shingle pier, Jon Snow waited in a black cloak rimed with frost, flanked by half a dozen wary stewards. The Night's Watch had been depleted by deserters and death. Its defenders looked gaunt as crows, and their eyes followed the lantern men with ill-contained dread. Yet when sacks of grain and wheels of salt cheese rolled down gangplanks, the brothers' stares warmed to hunger. Jon clasped Davos by the forearm, murmured thanks, but his gaze flicked again and again to the silent figures unloading crates as easily as if the wood were featherlight. They do not tire, Jon observed when Davos drew him into the warmth of the guard tower. Coals in the brazier popped. Steam rose from their cloaks. They do not speak either, Davos replied. But they saved us from White's 3 nights past. Burned them to ash. Jon's jaw tightened. Fire is a gift and a curse. We've seen Whites burn, but we've also seen Crasters keep lit with women inside when the walkers came. Mathos warmed his hands at the brazier. Fire saved us at Blackwater too. Did it? Jon's gray eyes held Davos. Or did it damn King's Landing in another way? Word spreads faster than ravens. I heard what price was paid for the river to run calm. Davos's shoulders hunched against an inner chill. I would change that day if I could, but I cannot. All I can do is carry grain to keep men alive for the war to come. Jon nodded, understanding etched in creases of fatigue. And the war comes swiftly. Our ranging parties vanish. The woods north of the wall move at night. Trees groan as if they walk. Something stirs them. The brazier hissed. Outside, a horn blast sounded once. Riders returning. Jon paused, listening. 2 more blasts, wildlings. Jon's eyes flared, but before he could move, a 3rd blast cut the air. Faint yet clear White Walkers. The room froze. Brothers scrambled for spears and crossbows. Davos drew his knife, though he knew the blade was useless against ice demons. Jon hurled open the door. Snow whirled into the corridor, stinging with cold so sharp it burned. The 3rd blast echoed again, closer, 3 mournful notes reverberating through the frozen stones. Mathos's face turned pale. Through the driving flurries, shapes emerged, thin, shambling silhouettes with limbs stiff, eyes blue. White stumbled toward the gatehouse. Brothers loosed quarrels, but only fire would fell them. Davos saw one lantern man stride calmly forward, iron lamp held high. The red glow within flared bright as sunrise. Snow hissed where it touched the light. A gout of ruby flame burst forth, sweeping the courtyard. Whites ignited, crackling like resinous pine. Brothers shielded faces, eyes wide. When the searing glow faded, only ashes stirred on the wind. Jon gripped his sword hilt, knuckles white. Is that sorcery or salvation? Perhaps both, Davos answered. Inside he felt pity for the young Lord Commander forced to weigh miracle against terror with every breath. In King's Landing the streets crawled with tension thick as cobweb, invisible yet felt across the skin. The small folk bickered in bread lines. Priests of the 7 preached beneath scorched statues, and red acolytes passed among them offering cups of watered wine blessed by R'hllor. A rumor leaked that Queen Marjorie had quietly set aside a corner of the Red Keep for a new orphanage staffed by Tyrell Septas. Another claimed the Septas were spies gathering names of those who cursed the new queen's flame-kissed allies. Fear bred in silence. When silence grew too tight, It burst into fights over casks of lamp oil or cuts of meat too fresh to be lawful. Tyrion Lannister stalked the maze of secret tunnels beneath the city, torch in hand. Beside him padded Bronn, daggers loose in sheaths. Flecks of green residue clung to stone barrels like moss, dregs of wildfire stores the Alchemist's Guild had failed to clear during Stannis' seizure. Tyrion's boot kicked a shard of glass that gleamed ominous jade. "Enough wildfire remains down here to cook half the city," he muttered. Bronn spat. "Light it and let the flames settle the throne once for all." "Tempting," Tyrion admitted, "but I rather fancy sleeping in a bed not ablaze." They rounded a bend into darkness thick as wine dregs. There Varys waited, flanked by two ragged boys carrying satchels. The spider inclined his head. "You received my message?" "I received too many messages, all dripping with doom." Tyrion wiped sweat. "Speak plainly." "Plainly then, the High Septon readies to resurrect the faith militant. Sparrows flock to King's Landing at his whisper. Give them a martyr and they ignite revolution." Bronn grinned. "Find them a red witch to roast." Varys raised a finger. "Or a lion cub. Tommen still wears a crown too heavy for his tender neck. Remove him publicly, accuse Stannis of tyranny, and the faith will rise." Tyrion's face hardened. "Plan another child's death and I'll kill you myself." Varys' smile was sad. "No plan is pretty in war. Then plan prettier." Tyrion turned away. "I'll not be party to more ashes upon children's graves." He stalked off. Bronn shrugged at Varys and followed. The eunuch watched them vanish, sighing. "Pretty never built peace," he murmured, then nodded to the boys. They slipped down a side passage toward barrels of wildfire, carrying flint and steel. In the throne room, King Stannis heard petitions beneath tattered banners newly stitched with stag and rose. Marjorie sat on a carved oaken seat beside him, hands folded, every inch the gracious consort. Yet tension crackled like dry reeds between Stannis and Melisandre looming behind. Each time the priestess placed a hand upon the king's shoulder, Marjorie's gaze sharpened subtly, though her features remained serene. A merchant of Myr pleaded for compensation. Pirates bearing the Kraken banner had taken his fleet bound for Old Town. Stannis promised dispatch of galleys once Pike bent knee. Ser Jaime Lannister, now wearing a plain white cloak, stripped of lion embroidery, stepped forward, requesting arms to fortify the Rose Road against banditry. Stannis granted steel but withheld crossbows, prompting Jaime's wry bow. Last came a haggard septa who begged the new king to rebuild the orphan houses burned when wildfire consumed the docks. Stannis listened, eyes shadowed. He turned to Marjorie. "See to this. Use coin from royal coffers and grain from Tyrell stores." Marjorie inclined her head gracefully, though courtiers murmured. Was the king spending rose coin for fiery mercy? The septa kissed Marjorie's hand, blessing her in the Seven's name. Melisandre's lips thinned. When petitions ended, Stannis dismissed the hall. Jaime lingered. "Your Grace, word from the west. My father approaches with 20,000 men. He camps at Bitterbridge." Stannis' jaw tightened. "He'll strike when the realm is weakest." Lannister claws clutch at lost gold. He beckoned Ser Axel Florent, ordering musters along the Mander. Jaime offered to negotiate with Lord Tywin. Stannis refused. "Your father will bend or break." Jaime's mouth twisted. "I doubt he bends." Melisandre's ruby pulsed. Steel melts under the right flame. But Stannis' next command startled all. Jaime would ride to Casterly Rock, escorted by lanternmen, bearing terms of peace. Tywin would surrender half his host to the north to fight the dead or forfeit lands to the crown. Jaime accepted with wary nod. That night, Marjorie visited the king at the painted table chamber. Ink pots trembled as tremor passed through Dragonstone's carved model. Stannis frowned. "Even stone quakes lately." Marjorie laid a map of the Reach atop the painted table. Candlelight danced on her eyes. "If Lord Tywin resists, the Reach must stand firm. My Lord Father may waver if Highgarden fears R'hllor." Stannis studied her. "Speak plainly." "My people worship the Seven. They kneel because I ask, not because they trust your God. Each new red pyre feeds doubt. She touched his gauntlet gently. Burn no more men until the war is won. Give them time to see justice beneath the flame. Stannis's gaze fell to their clasped hands. Justice costly is still justice, he murmured, but after a long silence he nodded. No burnings unless treason demands. On that you have my oath. Jon Snow's raven bore this decree north a week later. Davos saw Jon reading by lamplight in the commander's tower, a smile tugging rare at his lips. Yet any warmth died when a second raven arrived minutes later. Jon's eyes skimmed the parchment. He paled. Asha Greyjoy's reavers strike Deepwood Motte, he told Davos, and Roose Bolton marches on Winterfell under truce banner, yet rumors whisper he means to seize it for the crown. Jon slammed fist upon table. The north fractures while the dead gather. Davos laid a weather-scarred hand on Jon's shoulder. We cannot mend every rift at once. We must, Jon said, or we feed the walkers from 7 directions. Outside the window, snow thickened. Lantern men patrolled ramparts, their lamps glowing faint under drifting drifts. One paused at the tower base, head tilted as if listening. Davos watched, uneasy. That night, a blizzard buried Eastwatch in white silence. Brothers took shifts shoveling drifts from the gate. Davos awoke to distant screams. He rushed to the courtyard to find lantern men standing amid a ring of crimson flame. A steward's hut burned, flames guttering orange. In the snow lay 2 brothers, blackened wounds smoking, eyes wide. Jon knelt beside them, horror on his face. They were whispering of the Lord of Light, he told Davos, voice raw. Lantern men slew them for blasphemy, the survivors say. Davos spun on the silent figures. Is this true? No answer. Red light washed over snow, pulsing. Davos gripped his dirk, though he knew blade worthless. This is not mercy. This is murder. Jon rose, gloved hand on Longclaw's hilt. They abide by no law of the Watch. They must be confined. Even as he spoke, a lantern man lifted his lamp. Red flame within swirled faster, shapes coiling, serpents of fire. Jon drew Longclaw, the Valyrian steel glimmered. Stand down, he barked. The lantern man froze, then slowly lowered the lamp. The flame stilled. Brothers dragged shackles from the armory, but iron writhed molten when it touched the lantern men's wrists. Finally, they were led to an empty ice cell, sealed behind oak doors barred with cold iron chains. Davos felt dread coil tighter. He penned urgent raven to Stannis. Lantern men growing dangerous. But the raven never left. Come morning, the rookery door hung ajar. Cages empty, birds gone. Feathers littered snow like black petals, singed at edges. Tywin Lannister's host crested the hills of the Reach beneath banners whipped ragged by winter winds unheard of so far south. The old lion rode in silence, steel eyes on the horizon. Reports of Tyrell grain going north, of banners new forged in stag and rose, gnawed at him. He camped at Sweetwater for night council. His brother Kevin cautioned caution. King's Landing is not ours, but our gold buys loyalty still. Tywin leaned over map. Gold buys swords. Fear wins wars. He sent ravens to the faith, promising restoration of September privileges if they rose against the Red God's tyranny. He dispatched envoys to Pike, offering Ironborn raiding rights to reach coast should Euron harry Dragonstone instead. Tywin Lannister prepared a war on many fronts, trusting coin and reputation where others trusted flame or faith. At sea, Euron crows, I watched evening storms brew from the deck of silence, lips curling in laughter as thunder rolled. The realm drowns, he told his thralls, and drowned men sail best. Silence's black sails caught gales bound for Shipbreaker Bay where rumor said Dragonstone trembled. Euron sought cracks in stone to pry open treasures. Dragons, perhaps. Within those cracks, the dragon stirred. Obsidian fissured into petals. Heat throbbed. A greenish glow joined the red, mingling into eerie gold. Stone gave birth to scale the color of midnight tinged with ember veins. The hatchling flexed wings brittle as glass yet strong as grief, then opened molten eyes and shrieked. Its cry traveled under earth, through tunnels, into Melisandre's dreams. She awoke screaming a name no tongue knew. Stannis found her kneeling before a brazier, hair unbound, face streaked with sweat. "What shadow hunts you?" he asked. "Shadow?"
No.
Her voice trembled. "Light too bright to bear. The first of 3 is born. We must feed it blood or it will feed itself." Stannis backed away. "No more children. Not children. Traitors. Release the lantern men upon the rock. Let dragon drink lion blood." But the king shook his head. He turned and strode away, though her plea followed like an echo. That night, on the ramparts, Jaime Lannister prepared to depart with the lantern men. Marjorie met him, pressing a sealed parchment into his gold hand. "For my grandmother," she whispered, "if you reach Highgarden alive." Jaime raised brows. "You expect my death, your grace?" "I expect men to underestimate the price of peace." She smiled faintly. "Deliver that, and remind Lady Olenna the rose's roots may yet drink new water." Jaime tucked the note, mounted, and rode through the gate at dawn with 3 lantern men, their lamps dark beneath cloaks. Moonset glimmered on the Blackwater. He wondered if he journeyed to parley or escort his own doom. In Eastwatch's frigid cells, Davos confronted the imprisoned lantern men. Oak doors groaned as he entered. Within, the 2 figures stood motionless amid frost-rimed walls. Lamps glowed dim. "Why did you kill the brothers?" Davos demanded. "Who commands you?" They answered with silence. He stepped closer, heart hammering. Snowflakes drifted through cracks overhead. Red light refracted in each flake. Up close he saw the men's skin was not flesh but something like translucent quartz shot through with sullen ember veins.
Nobre fard.
"Are you men at all?" Davos whispered. The nearer lantern man raised a hand and pressed palm to his chest. Beneath the tunic, light pulsed in time to something like a heartbeat, slow, deliberate. Then he lifted the lamp and turned the key on its lid. The flame inside swirled and shaped itself into a tiny stag wrapped by a rose stem. Davos stared, mesmerized. A low horn blast rolled through the keep. Shouts rose. Davos spun, rushed from the cell. Outside, archers clustered on the wall, pointing south. On the horizon, a red storm boiled across the sky, thunderheads illuminated from within by crimson lightning. At its vanguard, a dark ribbon of figures trudged, whites uncountable. Above them, luminous shapes glided. Ice WIRMS? Davos's gut clenched. Jon joined him, cloak whipping. The dead march early. Winter's heart quickens. He turned to summon the lantern men, but Davos shook his head. "They are strange allies, but we need every flame." Brothers unbarred the cell. The lantern men stepped into the courtyard, lamps blazing. They turned west, ignoring the undead horde. Instead, they faced the frozen sea. Ice writhed as cracks spiderwebbed outward. From the fissures rose other lantern men, dozens, climbing through black water unfrozen by red heat. Each held a lamp whose flame blazed brighter than any torch. Jon gasped. Where did they come from? Davos had no answer. The lantern men formed ranks along the shoreline, lamps raised. Crimson fire leapt skyward, weaving into a barrier of writhing light. Snow melted to steam, ice hissed. Whites reaching the line shriveled to ash, yet more pressed behind. Sudden roar split the gale. From northeast a mottled shadow swooped, an enormous ice dragon, wingspan vast, scales glittering frost. Its eyes glowed cerulean. It loosed a torrent of white flame that froze the sea mid-surge. Brothers screamed. The barrier flickered where freezing fire met red flame, conflicting magics clashing in violent arcs. The lantern men strained. Lamps dimmed, flickered, reignited. Some shattered under the ice dragon's blast, red shards scattering. When a lamp fell, its bearer crumbled to ash, body consumed from within. For each fallen lantern man, the barrier thinned. Jon raised Longclaw, valor burning though despair churned. Davos unsheathed dagger, useless but defiant. Then a different roar answered, distant yet rising. From the southeast, gilded by dawn, a shape cut through clouds. A dragon black as midnight, veins glowing ember. The hatchling grown impossibly swift, drawn by blood and flame. It dove, exhaling fire orange gold. The ice dragon shrieked, banking.
Flame met frost in thunderous roar.
Snowstorms swirled into vortex, lightning strobing red and blue. The living dragon's fire licked the wall itself, melting parapets. Brothers scattered. Davos pulled Jon behind a shattered cart as molten ice sprayed. The black dragon and the ice dragon clashed skyward, talons raking. Frost exploded under ember. Below, lanternmen rallied, forming new barrier funneling whites into kill zone where watch archers lit pitch arrows. Corpses burned, but many fled into forest, seeking flanks. Hours passed like minutes. By dusk, the sky fell silent. The ice dragon limped north, trailing shards of frozen wing. The black dragon banked low above the sea, one wing torn, flames guttering from cracked maw, then wheeled south toward Dragonstone. Cheers rose weakly among survivors. Jon leaned on Longclaw, eyes shining with awe and dread. Fire answered ice, he whispered. Davos stared at the lanternmen, now halved in number. Lamps burned low yet steady. At what cost? He murmured. That night, around meager hearth, Jon sent ravens to every lord of the north. Dragons fight the dead, come south to stand with fire or perish cold. Davos added a note for Stannis. Lanternmen nearly spent, dragonborn, hasten reinforcements. He prayed the birds would reach despite storms. But in King's Landing, ravens perished in nets of wildfire-lit sky. Tyrion's sabotage burned unseen, trapping pleas for aid in charcoaled feathers before they reached the Red Keep's rookery. Stannis never read them. Instead, he pored over reports of Tywin rallying the Faith militant in Bitterbridge. Marjorie pleaded caution, yet banners of warriors' sons already fluttered at town walls, 7 pointed stars painted upon shields. An army formed to claim King's Landing for the Seven, to cleanse it of red heresy and the king who embraced it. Stannis tightened gauntlets. They test my mercy, he ordered Ser Axel. Muster every smith, forge chains, boil oil. The city will stand. Melisandre stood at his elbow. Dragon returns wounded. Blood heals flame. A lion's heart beats strong. Stannis glared.
No.
I swore. She bowed. But as she turned, her ruby pulsed brighter, echoing the faint beat of the wounded dragon's heart. Beyond the city walls, gold cloaks whispered among themselves that the king's mercy wavered. Some slipped away by night to join the faith. Others sold secrets to Sellsword companies Tywin funded. Jaime rode the King's Road with lanternmen, uneasy beneath winter sky now thick with migrating ravens. Ominous black waves fleeing something terrible. At Crackclaw Point they encountered an ambush. Sellswords in Faith's colors, crossbows loaded. A bolt punched through the first lanternman's lamp. The glass shattered. Flame burst forth, then sucked inward, imploding into darkness. The lanternman fell, body folding like embers into ash.
Jaime sped honor bound, shouting.
The second lanternman unleashed flame, engulfing attackers. But an arrow sliced across Jaime's ribs. He toppled. The third lanternman scooped him single-armed, horse and all aflare behind, and carried him through smoke. When Jaime awoke, they sheltered in ruins of an abandoned September. Rain hissed on shattered roof tiles. His wound burned, but the lanternman pressed warm palm to his side. Heat sealed flesh. Jaime gasped. "Thank you," he whispered. The lanternman said nothing, but the lamp flickered, and within its flame Jaime thought he saw a girl's shy smile. He slept. Far north, Tormund Giantsbane squinted into Snow Vale at something vast moving beyond trees. Shapes like colossal elk made of shadow, antlers dripping frost. He muttered to Val, "Not dead, not living. Night's children." They withdrew toward the wall, bearing warning. In the Riverlands, Arya Stark, now cat of the canals no more but a silent face among the Brotherhood without banners, heard tales of a burning dragon and a frozen one. She thought of home long lost, and of revenge yet undelivered. In Essos, Daenerys Targaryen stood on the prow of a peace ship from Meereen, 3 dragons circling above. News of a new dragon rising in Westeros reached her by ship's bird. She stroked Drogon's scales, eyes distant. "Blood of my blood senses kin," she said coldly. "If kin devours kin, what remains for my kingdom?" The world braced. In Dragonstone's shattered vault, the black dragon landed in storm. Melisandre greeted it alone. She pressed a bleeding palm to its snout, its molten eye locked on her ruby. "Drink," she whispered. "Grow." Lightning flashed crimson. In King's Landing, Marjorie found Stannis staring from ramparts at storm-riven sky. "Your Grace," she said softly. "The city is tinder, and faith is spark." He turned, eyes red-rimmed. "And justice is the wind," he answered. She took his hand. Together they watched thunderheads collide, gray and red, above a realm teetering. War of roses and flames had only begun. Yet beyond all mortal banners the long night gathered, hungry. And somewhere, the lullaby of a lost princess drifted on the storm winds, weaving through every camp and council chamber, a soft reminder of the cost already paid, and of debts yet to fall due. A damp hush lay over the riverlands at sunrise, mist clinging to willow branches like shrouds. Hoofbeats broke the silence. First a measured trot, then the frantic clatter of pursuit. Jaime Lannister urged honor-bound between knotted oaks, cloak snapping behind him like a tattered banner. Blood still soaked the torn seams of his crimson doublet where the Sellsword bolt had grazed. Each breath flared pain along his ribs, but pain no longer slowed him. It pressed him onward, for the lantern man who rode at his flank never tired, and the black lamp he carried pulsed in eerie sympathy with Jaime's own hammering heart. The forest road bent toward a ruined shrine of the crone. Its roof collapsed beneath some forgotten siege. Jaime hauled the reins, reining in beneath the sagging arch. The lantern man dismounted without sound. Behind them, a second horse trailed riderless. Its original owner sprawled half-stripped across the saddle, head lolling and eyes vacant where flame had licked the life from him. Jaime slid to the leaf-strewn ground, teeth gritted. "If trotting a corpse through the countryside is your notion of subtle, we'll be swimming in vultures by midday." The lantern man tilted his head. Beneath dusky hood, pale skin glimmered, translucent, shot through with faint ember veins. He set the corpse against a mossy pillar and opened the lampside panel. For a moment Jaime glimpsed that impossible fire. Coiling shapes of stag and rose intertwined, tiny yet furiously alive, casting blood-red sparks across the shrine's crumbled pews. A hiss, like steel kissed by water, shivered through air. The corpse collapsed inward, flesh collapsing to charred motes that danced upward and vanished. Only a blackened breastplate remained, buckled by heat into an indecipherable knot. Jaime swore softly. The lantern closed with a click. "Remind me never to ask what you do with friends," he muttered. The lantern man returned to his horse. They rode on. West of Bitterbridge, the camps of the faith militants sprawled across wind-tossed fields. A lattice of white tents stamped with 7-pointed stars, ringing cookfires and caged ravens. Beneath pennants of sword and crystal, bearded men knelt to pray before dawn patrols. Barefoot sparrows sharpened rusted scythes. Maidens with tattooed stars upon their brows whispered hymns over vats of boiling pitch. At the camp's heart rose a timber watchtower crowned by a banner of cloth of silver embroidered with the warrior's hollow eye. Their lord Tywin Lannister surveyed marshy plains through a brass far eye, lips pressed thin. Kevin Lannister waited behind him, gauntlet hands clasped. "No word from Jaime," he said. "No word is its own message." Tywin turned the far eye south where distant columns of dust marked new arrivals. Small folk marching under tattered star banners. "The shepherd finds more sheep each day." Ser Adam Marbrand approached, cloak streaked with mud. Scouts report lantern fires near Crackclaw Point. Some claim they walk without men to carry them. Tywin lowered the far eye. "Lantern men, red sorcery, whispers that frighten children. Fear is a sword sharper than Valyrian. Let the realm tremble at phantoms while steel does the killing." He ordered Marbrand to gather crossbows treated with alum salts. the better to withstand dragon flame if rumors of new hatchlings proved true. Kevin asked whether the Seven's warriors would stand firm against sorcery. Tywin's stare sliced him. Fanatics stand firm against everything except hunger. We feed them victory or we feed them lies. Either sates the belly. At Eastwatch, snow battered the ramparts without pause. Frost carpeted the courtyard where lantern men stood sentinel, lamps guttering crimson. The battle had left scars. Ice drifts stained with ash, arrow piles melted into twisted slag by the black dragon's breath. Brothers labored to mend gate hinges warped by heat. Maester Clyda's mixed poultices for men frostbitten while enduring crimson burns upon arms. Jon Snow strode the yard, cloak sodden, barking orders. Double patrols on the shore, salvage arrowheads from half-melted caches, send runners to Hardhome to warn wildlings still wandering the snows. Davos crossed the yard to him. The lantern men saved us, but they cost us trust. Brothers fear sleeping with lamps alight. They fear because they do not know, Jon replied. I would know. He motioned to the nearest lantern man, who watched with eyes that reflected no fear and no curiosity. Tell me who commands you. Silence. Only wind. Jon exhaled a frosty plume. Then show me what you are. He drew a dagger of dragonglass from his belt, a gift from Samwell Tarly. Slowly, he extended it toward the lantern man, hilt first. A test. Long moments passed before pale fingers accepted the blade. The lantern man examined its obsidian edge under red glow. Then, to Jon's shock, he turned the blade and drove it through his own translucent palm. The obsidian slid through with little resistance. No blood flowed. Instead, a fine powder of gray ash trickled from the wound, sizzling as if hot flake touched snow. The lantern man withdrew the dagger, held his hand to the lamp's open window. Heat licked the gash. Ash reknit. When he lowered his palm, only a hairline fissure remained. Jon swallowed. Davos felt a chill deeper than winter. They are vessels, he murmured. And the flame is their blood. A horn blast cut the gale, one for friends. Tormund Giantsbane lumbered through the gate with 200 ragged free folk. Haggard faces, broken spears. They carried bundles of dry birch for trade and news of horrors north. Elk made of shadow, pale spiders thick as hounds, and a whisper of a second ice dragon rousing. Jon clasped Tormund's arm. We'll feed your folk, but we need every spear for the wall. Then give us flame to fight frost, Tormund said, eyeing the lantern men warily. One lantern man turned his lamp toward Tormund. Red light washed over fur-lined mail. The wildling flinched but stood fast. The lantern man inclined his head. A gesture of respect or measurement? Even Davos could not tell. Under Dragonstone's smoking peak, Melisandre knelt amid shattered eggshell, the color of night. The newborn dragon, wings spanned wider now than a drum. On sail, curled about her, breath soft as furnace gusts. Its wounds from the battle at Eastwatch oozed glowing embers. Each droplet hissed into the volcanic floor. She pressed both palms against the creature's chest, ruby blazing. Drink and mend, she whispered. Heat pulsed through her limbs. Veins shimmered scarlet beneath skin. She felt the dragon's heartbeat synchronize with her own, slower, heavier, ancient. Visions flooded her sight. A snowbound field lit by blue fire, a throne of twisted iron engulfed by crimson roses, a pale girl in patchwork skin running across waves of obsidian. The visions tore away, leaving her panting. She knew their meaning only in fragments. Footsteps echoed. Maester Pylus entered, face ashen. My lady, stone fractures deepen, the castle walls sweat. If another tremor strikes, the keep will stand, she breathed. Stone serves flame. Stone cracks, he insisted, voice trembling. If your miracle grows further, miracles grow or die. Stand Azide. She closed her eyes, poured fire from ruby into dragon's wounded scales. Sparks danced. Pylus fled. Lightning forked beyond the open vent high overhead. Storm without, storm within. Thunder boomed like the beat of titanic wings. On the mainland, Stannis studied a new report. Euron Greyjoy's longships had torched Storm's End's salt pans, slipping away before Garrison could mount ballistae. He clenched fists. "One war at a time," he growled, but the realm offered him 3. Tywin's crusade in the Reach, Winter's army at the Wall, Kraken's at the coast. Ser Axel urged he strike Tywin first. Melisandre advised unleashing the dragon to torch the lion's host. Blood for blood, as prophecy wills. Marjorie counseled patience. Consolidate city defenses, allow Tyrell harvests to feed troops, win small folk hearts. Stannis weighed counsel like iron ingots. Finally he ordered, "Send ravens. Proclaim an amnesty. Any house that abandons Tywin and swears to Stag and Rose before first snows of winter shall retain its lands. Denounce Tywin as traitor to king and gods both." He turned to Melisandre. "And keep the dragon from war until my word frees it." She bowed, lips tight. In her eyes flared reflection of fire he had forbidden. In Bitterbridge's chapel tent, the High Septon washed his hands in fragrant water laced with rose oil. The warriors' sons filed past, armored in mail and faith. Tywin watched impassively. "If the king offers amnesty," the Septon said, "let him first kneel for absolution." "He will not kneel," Tywin observed. "Then the star will blaze bright above his fall," the Septon intoned. Night fell. 1,000 votive candles mirrored constellations across the encampment. Tywin penned orders to detach 5,000 foot west, to harry Gold Road caravans, stretching Tyrell lines, leaching their grain shipments south. He nosed a candle flame, wax spattered onto parchment. Half the tent hissed black as wick died, and for a heartbeat Tywin thought he smelled brimstone. At that very moment Jaime and his lone lantern man rode through a crumbling mill hamlet outside Golden Grove. Lantern fires bobbed on hillsides, Tyrell patrols. Jaime's chest throbbed, the healed wound hot beneath jerkin. They tethered horses in a hay-choked loft. Jaime unsheathed his sword, gold hand awkward. "You saved me," he said to the lantern man. "But what is your purpose? You kill at orders or at will?" A rustle. The lantern man reached into his cloak, withdrew a sliver of charred wood. Shireen's doll, half melted, its stitched smile blackened. Jaime blinked. "Where did you find that?" The lantern man pressed the doll into Jaime's gloved palm. Heat lingered in the fabric, though no flame burned. Jaime closed fingers about it, inexplicably moved. When he looked up, the lantern man lightly touched the doll. Then Jaime's chest, near the wound, as though linking them, loss to loss. Jaime exhaled. "You remember her." A soft vibration seemed to hum within the lamp. Melancholy, almost a lullaby. Rain drummed on the roof. Jaime wondered if a piece of Shireen's soul walked in each lantern man, bound by fire to serve a father who had bartered her life. The thought chilled him worse than winter. Under the broken September of Baelor, Marjorie Tyrell met secretly with the High Septon's envoys, 2 silent sisters escorted by a star brother. They passed her a scroll sealed with 7-fold wax. Call for peace talks, they claimed, if the queen would renounce red sorcery. Marjorie, veil drawn, accepted the letter, eyes cool. She dismissed envoys with Tyrell courtesy. Once alone, she read the message by moonlight leaking through shattered rose window. The scroll reeked of subterfuge. No promise, only ultimatum. Deliver Melisandre for inquisition or see the city stormed by Faith and Lion alike. She burned it in a silver bowl, ashes swirling up the cracked dome like black snow. When she returned to her solar, Lady Olenna sat waiting, arrived by secret galley upriver. The Queen of Thorns tapped her cane. "Child, you dance with fires too hot. Roses wither in drought." "I nurture roots," Marjorie answered. "In soil scorched but rich," Olenna snorted. "Rich with bones. The small folk fear the red woman more than they love your barley soup. Give them hope they can taste. Hope dulls when fed too quickly. They must hunger for it first." Spoken like a king, not a queen, Olenna's gaze sharpened.
King's breed war.
Queens must prune it. She produced a vile, strangely familiar crystal. Essence of nightshade, gift from Dorne. A drop softens bad dreams. A draft stills them forever. Marjorie's throat tightened. You ask me to murder my husband. I ask you to shield realm and rose alike. The realm cannot serve two gods. Choose. Marjorie turned to the window. The city's lamps flickered in gusts from Blackwater. He is stern, but not cruel. He keeps his oath. Olenna sighed. Cruelty flowers from stern soil. She placed the vial on a marble table, rose, cane tapping. Choose quickly. Winter steps faster. Winter's heel crushed the north. Snowstorms swallowed Carhold's watchtowers. White wolves prowled fields where barley should dry. In the hall of Winterfell, Roose Bolton broke bread with Lady Sansa Stark and her wardens. He delivered word of Stannis' amnesty, praising justice, yet his pale eyes measured her reaction. Sansa listened, noting every pause. She had learned subtlety from Cersei's lessons beside a golden scepter. Now she played polite hostess while sandpaper scraped her heart. Outside, Bolton's men tightened grip on the castle. Ramsay stalked kennels, flaying a boar for sport. Northern folk whispered that flaying knives glistened for more than hog flesh. A raven arrived bearing Jon Snow's urgent script: Ice Dragon, Whites, Lantern Men. Sansa hid message from Bolton, sending a cryptic reply: The North remembers the wall. She dispatched trackers to guide Davos's envoys should they reach the Dreadfort Road. But one such envoy never arrived. Cuts along the King's Road revealed burnt wagons, charred grain. Euron's raiders had struck deep inland, torches wielded like serpent tongues. Fishermen found blackened lantern fragments amid wreckage, hint that dragon servants fought krakens on Midnight Road. At Eastwatch, Jon Snow walked ramparts with Samwell, newly arrived bearing obsidian daggers and a scroll from Old Town. Archmesters urged caution. Reports of necrotic frost infecting lower neck vertebra of walkers slain by fire, as if ice burned back. Sam read by lantern. They warn flame alone may not save us. Jon closed his eyes, thinking of red barrier flickering under ice dragon's breath. Then we arm every man with dragonglass and hope that knowledge weighs more than fear. The blacksmith Donal Noy's successor set up hammers day and night, forging arrowheads from barrels of shattered obsidian. Lantern men assisted, their lamps softening stone edges for easier grinding. Brothers grew less afraid, though their gaze avoided the silent faces. One dusk, a lantern man removed his hood. Under pallid scalp, faint ridges of healed grayscale mapped his jaw. Davos caught breath, Shireen's disease. The lantern man pointed at Davos, then at his own cheek, tracing the ridges. A memory of the princess teaching Davos the passage, the dance of dragons, flared bright. Tears blurred his vision. The lantern man placed a hand upon Davos's shoulder. Warmth seeped through wool like heathfire. Davos whispered, I will see her not forgotten. Below King's Landing, Tyrion crept through sewer tunnels older than Aegon's conquest, carrying a lantern whose flame burned ordinary yellow. Varys followed, garbed as washerwoman. They reached a chamber beneath the dragon pit where wildfire jars lined alcoves thick as wasps' nests, leftovers from Joffrey's stockpiles. Tyrion knelt, studying etched symbols. Most cracked. Enough to topple a hill, he muttered. Varys produced a pouch of black powder dragon breath from Qohor. The faith wants a martyr? We give them a miracle, wildfire that appears the red god's vengeance. Tyrion hesitated, eyeing flickering light across green glass. And innocence? No revolution without innocent blood, Varys whispered. The imp's jaw clenched. He pictured Shireen's screams echoing across Blackwater. He stood. We set no more children alight, he said. Find another path. Varys's gaze, in torch glow, seemed carved of sorrow. Paths grow thorny, my lord. Under the siege of winter, a council convened in Stannis' solar. Snow hammered shutters. Melisandre stood by hearth, flame reflecting in her eyes. Across the room, Maester Franken delivered dire news. Fever swept Flea Bottom, cured by no known elixir. Some victims' flesh froze solid though their hearts beat hot. Melisandre claimed the sickness was night's breath after wildfire sabotage. They must cleanse slums with purifying fire. Marjorie objected. Burning sick is no cure. Stannis listened, torn. A messenger burst in. Jaime Lannister at the gatehouse with a lantern man and a peace banner. Stannis descended to the courtyard where snow fought rain. Jaime dismounted stiffly, bowing. Kingslayer no longer, he said. I bring a message from Lord Tywin. Break alliance with the Red Witch, and the faith will parley. Lions withdraw. Melisandre laughed. Lo. Stannis's gaze drilled Jaime. My father asks loyalty? Jaime said. He offers coiled vipers in a box. Release Melisandre to them, and they will strangle you next. Stannis considered. The lantern man beside Jaime raised the doll fragment, Shireen's charred doll, and set it gently at Stannis's feet. Snowflakes hissed where it touched. Stannis's breath caught. Lantern man's lamp flared. Inside, Shireen's tiny stitched smile glimmered before winking out. Stannis closed fist about the doll. His knuckles whitened. Tell your father I bend knee to no lion, no sparrow, but the realm burns. I quench with law, not sorcery. Melisandre serves until war's end. Beyond that, the Lord of Light may claim her or spare her as he wills. Jaime nodded faintly, glancing at the priestess. Something akin to pity flashed across his mismatched eyes. That night, the Black Dragon, newly named Varex's by Melisandre, arrived above the city, wings beating thunder. Citizens screamed. Bells rang. But the dragon circled once, trailing golden fire that sculpted a ring of warmth over frost-slick roofs, then roost atop the dragon pit's broken dome. Its wounds glimmered healed. Small folk gaped. A dragon, yet one that scorched no home. Some knelt in awe. Others ran for seps, praying. Among them, children sang a lullaby about a princess of fire who rode the sky. At Winterfell, Sansa crept through crypt passages by candlelight. She found a hidden alcove behind Lyanna's statue where an ironwood chest lay. Within, old letters from her father, Eddard Stark, describing northern oaths and an ancient pact with the children of the forest. In dire winter, a Stark may summon aid from Heartsglow. The hidden gods would beyond the wall. Sansa traced words with trembling fingers, words her father never had time to teach her. She vowed to send a raven to Jon, a path to older magic than any red flame or frozen night. Ravens, however, were missing. On a bare hill overlooking the Trident, Tywin Lannister stood before ranks of faith militant as dawn's blue frost glimmered on sword points. Trumpets called. The army began southward march. Tywin's lion banners interlaced with star pennants, an uneasy braid of gold and white. In his tent, the High Septon blessed a spear tipped with dragonglass rumored seized from Craster's sons. Even flame cannot withstand true faith, he declared. Storm clouds boiled overhead, heavy with snow despite midsummer's memory. Lightning flickered crimson. Tywin watched, expression unreadable. He ordered siege engineers to craft scorpions large enough to pierce dragon hide, to mount them upon war wagons. He carried still the letter from Jaime, unread, sealed with wax shaped as a broken sword. Tywin would read in his own time. Meanwhile, war wove itself. At Eastwatch, lantern men lined the wall, lamps blazing bright against swirling snow. Jon Snow ascended the icy steps, Davos at his side. Beyond shadowed forest, blue lights flickered, ice whites massing again. But this time a deeper darkness walked among them. Figures tall as giants, cloaked in moonlit mist. Others, kings of night. Longclaw rasped free. Jon raised it, steel dark against pale aurora. This is only first tide, he murmured. Red flames answered, surging stronger along parapets where lantern men lifted lamps. Crimson merged with moonlight, painting the snow in rose hues, stag's blood upon winter's fabric. Somewhere south, a queen weighed a vial of nightshade. East, a dragon roared into the storm. West, a kraken writhed across storm's end's tidipools. And far beyond north winds, the night's king opened eyes of crystal frost, hearing distant voice of a child's lullaby rise through cracks in time. The realm stood at edge of sword and flame, past and prophecy, debt and doom, and all who breathed within its borders, kings and killers, queens and lantern men, felt the hush before a storm greater than any war of men, a hush punctuated by a single heartbeat, half remembered, half forgiven, echoing from Dragonstone to the wall, a little girl's laugh wrapped in fire, promising light or ruin. Curtain of snow fell then, swallowing voice and vision alike, and within its silent drift the board reset once more, pieces poised beneath unseen hands, waiting for the next move.